Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, I'm John and I'm back with another video on my channel, Musings of a Marine. It's been a couple of weeks since I did my last video and I want to thank you for the views and the new subscribers I've gotten over that time. And it's time to talk about another subject. By the way, my buddy at work, who's also a Marine, hooked me up with his hat, so I thought I'd show it off today. So, but anyways, I wanted to talk about an important subject that impacts so many Filipino families and children throughout that country. My wife and I have talked at times about what would we do with the money if we won the big lotto, right? I'm sure a lot of people have had that discussion. My wife always said that she would like to build a school in the Philippines, out in the province. So, the poor kids who couldn't otherwise go to school would have a place to go. I remember the first time I went to Iloilo with her, we were at Fort San Pedro and just checking out the place. And there was 3 kids that were there fishing with banana peels. Didn't know fish were interested in that, but anyway. And it was a school day, and they were of school age, and they were not in school. And best I could guess, they probably lived in some shack next to a factory or warehouse and were squatters. And those kids don't get to go to school. Now, here's the thing, and I know we're talking about the Philippines and the United States, and here in the U.S., we have taxes that we pay to help pay for our public schools. And when I was a kid, we were given books to use and pencils and pens and things that we needed. And really didn't have to pay for much. There was no enrollment into the school or anything like that. You signed up for your classes and then you went where you went. And there wasn't much to it. We didn't have physical education uniforms. You wore some athletic shorts and you wore a t-shirt, and that was it. And now, when I went to school, starting in kindergarten in 1968 and graduated in 1981, and in 1973, I moved to this small town called Richmond, Michigan, and it was pretty much a farming community. So people were not too worried about what you wore to school as long as you weren't wearing something that was offensive to somebody. So there wasn't a lot of standards there, and there wasn't any real rich people there either. We didn't get to wear Air Jordans to school. That didn't even exist at that time. And trust me, nobody was interested in killing somebody else for what they were wearing. Now, that being said, let's contrast that to a Filipino child going to school. Even in the public schools, you're going to have an enrollment fee. What that pays for exactly, I don't know, but there is one. Anybody who watches this video that knows what I'm talking about here, I please put it in the comments and educate me, because I certainly would like to learn more about this topic. But there's the enrollment fee, and you got to wear a uniform. And of course, kids grow, so they got to get new uniforms, and they got to get the shoes that go with the uniform. And of course, they outgrow those. And you have to have a physical education uniform as well. Now, from what I've read up on this subject, not all schools, especially maybe more in the rural or provincial areas, are going to strongly enforce these rules. But if you want to get an education in any, really good school, you are going to have to meet these requirements. Even my wife, when she went to school, had to wear a uniform, even in college. And you know, her family was poor, but they were able to come up with the money, and you could borrow somebody's, or somebody outgrew theirs, and the next person in line in the family would inherit the uniform, I guess. But of course, when you change schools, then you got to change uniforms too. It's a never ending cycle, and it costs money. Now, it's not really expensive compared to American standards, but it still costs money. And how many families out there can really afford this? Some cannot. And if they cannot, are their kids even able to go to school? Now, I want to say one thing right from the get go. I wish that here in the United States, every kid had to wear a uniform to go to school. So you wouldn't have envy and jealousy and people being mocked for what they wore. And peer pressure is huge, especially in high school. You wouldn't have kids getting shot for the Air Jordans that they're wearing to school because some other kid wanted them, or whatever else they may be wearing that somebody else wants. Y'all look the same. It's continuity, it's uniformity, and it helps cohesion where the kids can focus on their schoolwork and what they're doing and not about impressing somebody. Hey, I'm a U.S. Marine veteran. We had to wear a uniform every single day. And I didn't have a problem with that. And certain uniforms I was darn proud to wear. I'd never had any Marine Corps dress blues, but I was proud to wear the uniform. It meant something. And so I have no problem with a uniform requirement for school. But what I do have a problem with is this. Unlike here in the United States, if you don't go to college in the Philippines and get some kind of degree, the odds of you getting a good paying job over there and having success isn't very good. Over here in the U.S., it is statistically true that people with a college degree typically earn more than somebody without. But that's not always the case. And as for me personally, someone who never got a college degree, I made a very good living selling cars for 15 years. So that doesn't require a degree, but it does require being educated on certain things. And they didn't just throw us to the wolves and tell us just go out there and sell cars. No, we had to learn about them. We had to know what we were talking about. Otherwise, you'd make the dealership look bad. And they were very big on making sure that they got awards for customer satisfaction, that the customers were satisfied and the complaints were very minimum. You get that by having salespeople that know what they're talking about. But anyways, that's not the big topic here. The big topic here is kids getting an education. And then in the Philippines, a lot of kids go without simply because their parents simply don't have the money to buy them what they need to go to school. My wife Diana and I, when we send boxes to Iloilo, oftentimes there's pens in there, pencils, notebooks when they're on sale. Diana buys a ton of them, and we send them all over there. And it's with a very simple directive. If our nieces and nephews didn't need them, or now our great nieces and nephews don't need them, then give them to somebody who does. Because the school is not going to provide this stuff. And you need it. And so that's the whole thing. It amazes me how many kids over there might even have a cell phone, but they lack certain necessities that they can't afford to, their family can't afford to even go to a school. And the priorities get a little mixed up there, but, things have changed from back in the day, and kids typically have cell phones now, and just stay in touch with their parents and things of that nature. And of course, I need and my wife needs to communicate with her family in Iloilo, so obviously that's important. But that was the whole thing with my wife's proposal about, hey, I would build a school and the poor kids could come to it. Now, some people are going to claim, well, not, you know, I heard an argument for uniforms that it's safer that way and that it saves the people money, the families money. Well, I don't know how you figure that. You got to buy a uniform anyways. How is that saving any family money? Okay. Oh, the kids need school clothes? Okay. Take them over to the local Ukai Ukai store and buy them some clothes there. Certainly a lot cheaper than these uniforms for the school, I'm willing to bet. And how does it keep them safer? Oh, because you can identify which kids are students and which ones aren't? That was one argument that I read. Nonsense. These kids got to wear ID badges, which of course here in the States we never needed to. And generally everybody knew everybody anyway. All right. I mean, is that really a problem in the Philippines? If it is, educate me in the comments section. I'd like to know. But it is such a crying shame that in a country where education is paramount, that a kid really has no chance in life if they can't at least get through high school. And they have all these rules hindering children from being able to make it to school because their family's poor and they can't afford it. I hope there's a solution to that, and I wish it would stop. Because the saddest part about when Diane and I go to Iloilo is when we're in the city and we see homeless people and they're sleeping on slabs of cardboard. And I don't even know when they last ate, and they're trying to sell puppies that they got a hold of for money so they can survive. Isn't there some way these kids could be in school? And if their parents are poor, then they end up poor, and it just keeps passing on generation to generation to generation. And these kids don't get an education, and their family's not educated, and a lot of them in the province don't ever learn English because of that. So they have no chance of going to any college where everything is taught in English. As far as, to my knowledge, that's the case. What chance do these kids have to make it in life? I lived in a rural area in my teenage years, outside of the town of Richmond. A lot of farms out there. Some kids even drove their tractors to school, the family tractor. That's how it was. And they had chores to do, and they'd get up early in the morning and do those chores before they went to school or after they got home. We had horses in my family. I was even out in the barn shoveling manure, cutting the grass on our big 2-acre plot of land that we had. We had a garden. There was chores to do. But at least we had the opportunity still to go to school. And if the kids got to walk a couple of kilometers, so be it. My wife did, in her uniform. But, you buy these kids these shoes, you got heavy rain, you got floods, the uniform gets messed up, the shoes get messed up. And I have to ask people, seriously, people who run the educational system in the Philippines, are you really doing all that's necessary to make sure that every kid gets an education? Or are you just going to dismiss those who just don't have enough money to get it? And too bad, they're on their own. I don't like that at all, okay? If people would say, well, what do I care? Well, because I happen to know kids, and help kids. My wife and I would send stuff home, like I said, for the nieces and nephews, for the great nieces and nephews to use in school. So we understand that and we get that. But not everybody has a Balak Bayan or a Westerner who married into the family to help them out with that kind of stuff. And so I really, really wish that maybe there could be some schools for the poor kids. That maybe some other people who have money could come up with ideas like Diana did to create a school that kids who don't have much could come to those schools. Didn't matter how they dressed as long as they were clothed. And through charitable organizations or donations, pay the teachers to educate them. The Philippines could really, really use that. And that's one reason that they just kind of get left behind. All these Asian countries, Japan and South Korea and China, that have just passed the Philippines by in education and creating successful people. They create more than the Philippines does, and they do that because their educational system is better and there's more opportunity. But yeah, I know you got poor people in those countries too that will probably have kids that will never see a classroom in their life. But I don't think it's the same as degree as in the Philippines. And for a country that I love, that I hope to retire in someday, I love kids and I hate to see them go through this. So that was just some thoughts that were on my mind today. We always took care of my nieces and nephews. As a matter of fact, and for those of you who are familiar with Iloilo, there's a high school over there called Angelicum. My nephew Pito got to go there. His aunt that he had here in the States paid for his tuition. And why she chose Pito out of the 4 kids, I don't know. Probably because he was the best behaved when they were growing up. That'd be my guess. Or she just liked him better. I don't know. But he got a great quality education. Went to nursing school. Now he's a nurse in England. My niece Annette, same thing, applied herself. Went to Iloilo National High School, though, but still applied herself, got good grades, went to nursing school, and now a nurse in England. They had the opportunities to do that. Not all kids do. We, as people who are Balak Bayans, who are Westerners that married into the Philippines, we should help more, I think, when it comes to that. But the Philippine country itself, the Philippines, they got to step up on this. You don't want poverty in your country. You don't want squatters filling the poor areas of Manila, living under overpasses and all of that. It starts with education. We got to do better. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. As always, hit the like button if you like my content. Subscribe. Check out all my other videos. I think I got some good things to say. But most importantly, God bless, take care, and Semper Fi.